You might think that all animals have red blood, but it turns out that isn't true. Some animals really do have blue blood, thanks to a special oxygen-carrying protein called hemocyanin. Hemocyanin is similar to hemoglobin, which carries oxygen in the red blood cells of most mammals, including us. But while hemoglobin uses iron to grab onto oxygen, hemocyanin uses copper. And because of that, these copper-based bloods turn blue when oxygenated. So which animals have blue blood? Let's dive into it. First up, we have to talk about horseshoe crabs. They're not actually crabs, but they are pretty. They're also known as sea horseshoes or just horseshoes. They've been around since the dinosaurs and haven't changed much in over 200 million years. They're mostly found along the coasts of the Pacific Ocean from Southern California to Peru, as well as the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. You can even find them over in the Mediterranean. And they're not crabs, but they sure look like one. They have a shell that's shaped like a horseshoe and is typically brown or black, although it can be green or red too. Their shells are made of calcium carbonate, just like a crab's exoskeleton. And they also have a tail that they use to flip themselves over if they end up on their backs. Horseshoe crabs have been around for so long that they were probably a source of food for those ancient mariners who lived in the first coastal settlements. The indigenous people of the Chesapeake Bay area still harvest them today. They don't taste bad, but they're kind of bland. So they are usually used as bait for eel or crab pots or turned into a cake called sea mat. The eggs are considered a delicacy and are sometimes sold at fancy restaurants for up to $100 a serving. Horseshoe crabs are also incredibly valuable in medicine because their blood is super useful for detecting bacterial toxins. If a medical product is going to be injected into humans, it has to be tested for endotoxins first. Endotoxins are molecules found in the outer membrane of gram-negative bacteria, and they're super dangerous because they can cause fever, inflammation, and even septic shock. One test that's used to detect endotoxins is called the Limulus amebocyte lysate test, or LAL for short. And it uses blood from horseshoe crabs to find out if a product is contaminated. A single horseshoe crab can give up to 60 milliliters of blood, enough to test 18 products. And a positive test result means that the product is safe to use. That's why over 600,000 horseshoe crabs are bled each year for the medical industry. Bleed them once and they're good to go for up to 5 years. Although that sounds a bit intense, the test is super important. One false positive and patients could die. So thank you, horseshoe crabs. But all this blood testing has had an impact on the horseshoe crab population. Since the 1990s, their numbers have dropped by about 30%. And in 2008, horseshoe crab conservation status was changed from near threatened to vulnerable, but back to their blue blood. Like most arthropods, horseshoe crab blood is blue. It's full of hemocyanin, which uses copper to transport oxygen. That's different than hemoglobin, which uses iron and is found in the red blood cells of most vertebrates, including us. Hemoglobin gets its color from the iron atoms, which turn bright red when exposed to oxygen. But hemocyanin doesn't turn any particular color until it binds to oxygen. Then it turns blue. When hemocyanin grabs onto oxygen, the copper ions in the molecule change shape. This change causes the blood to absorb red light and reflect blue, giving it that signature blue color. Now, there's more to the story. Pure hemocyanin is actually colorless. It only turns blue when it binds to oxygen. So horseshoe crab blood isn't always blue. It's only blue when oxygenated. Next up, let's talk about the many species of octopus. Octopuses are intelligent creatures that live in the ocean. They have 8 arms with suckers that they use to move around and capture their food. They also have big eyes and 3 hearts. Most octopuses have blue blood, and there are a few reasons for this. First, their blood helps them survive in cold, low-oxygen waters. Cold water holds less oxygen than warm water, and that means that organisms living in cold water need to find other ways to get the oxygen they need. One way to solve this problem is to have larger, more efficient oxygen carriers. That's where hemocyanin comes in. Hemocyanin is an oxygen-carrying protein that uses copper instead of iron. That means it can grab onto more oxygen molecules per kilogram than hemoglobin. Second, hemocyanin helps protect the octopus from predators. See, blue is the color of poison. Animals that are blue are often poisonous, and that can help keep predators away. And finally, hemocyanin might help the octopus camouflage itself. Since octopuses are masters of disguise, they can change the color of their skin to match their surroundings. Blue blood might help them hide from predators by making their bodies look bluish, which makes sense since most of the ocean is blue. Now, we can't talk about blue-blooded creatures without mentioning squids. While not all squid species have blue blood, many do. For example, the Humboldt squid does. And they need hemocyanin for the same reasons as the octopus. Squid blood can be pretty dark, though. It's not always a bright blue. Sometimes it's more of a greenish gray. But under UV light, it glows blue. Now, this isn't because of hemocyanin. That's just the way squid skin reflects UV light. But hemocyanin does give the blood a bluish tint. Finally, let's talk about sea snails. Not all sea snails have blue blood, but a lot do. And again, it's probably because they live in cold, low-oxygen waters. That means they need a bigger oxygen carrier than hemoglobin. Snails are pretty unique, though. Their blood isn't just blue, it's also alcohol-powered. Alcohol is toxic to most animals, but snails use it to move around. See, snails have a special organ called the heart, lung, foot, or HL foot that helps them breathe. The H foot is basically a bunch of blood vessels packed into a small space. This gives the snail a huge surface area for gas exchange. But it also means that the snail's blood has to move pretty fast to deliver oxygen to all of its tissues. To make this possible, snails add alcohol to their blood. Alcohol helps the blood flow more quickly, but it also makes the blood more acidic. And that's not good for most animals, but snails are okay with it. In fact, they seem to thrive in it. All right, now it's time for some fun facts. Here are some cool things you didn't know about blue blood. Some other animals have blue blood too. For example, the Chinese river shrimp, the spider crab, the Greenland shark, some kinds of worms, some kinds of jellyfish, and some kinds of starfish. All of these animals have hemocyanin, which gives their blood a bluish tint. Copper isn't the only thing that can turn blood blue. In fact, there's a rare genetic disorder called hereditary erythrocyanosis that causes people's blood to turn blue. People with this disorder have a mutation in the gene that makes hemoglobin. Hemoglobin normally turns red when it binds to oxygen, but the mutated version of the protein turns blue. That's because the mutated hemoglobin has a hard time releasing oxygen, so it stays blue. And it's not just blood that can turn blue. Some insects like the blue tiger beetle have blue blood too, and that's because their bodies reflect blue light. This helps them camouflage themselves. Now here's another fun fact. The blood of horseshoe crabs, sea spiders, and other marine arthropods can turn green. This happens when the animals are exposed to low levels of oxygen. And it's not a bad thing. It's just a defense mechanism. See, when animals are exposed to low levels of oxygen, their bodies go into a sort of survival mode. This shuts down all of the body's non-essential functions, like movement, and it redirects all of the energy to the brain and the heart. This helps the animal stay conscious and keep moving until it reaches a place with more oxygen. And this is what happens to horseshoe crabs when they're exposed to low oxygen levels. Their blood turns green because the animals have a lot of hemocyanin in their bodies. Hemocyanin is normally blue, but when it's exposed to low levels of oxygen, it turns green. This is a way for the horseshoe crab's body to signal that it needs more oxygen. If you thought this was interesting, be sure to check out our videos on weird animal sex, bizarre bugs, and incredible adaptations. And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing science stories.